Unfortunately, no matter how we sliced the bid, 2/3 of the bid package wound up in Japan. The Japanese underbid our American companies consistently. This shows one of the heat exchangers, the tube bundles being assembled into the shell in Japan. And here it is going into the reactor building. That exchanger here cost $1 million FOB Japan, and almost $2 million by the time we put it through all of its tests and inspections and got it into the building and installed. And here sit two of them in position in the reactor building. This is one of the main circulating pumps. This crew here was tearing the pump down. Even though the reactor had been shut down for an extended period of time, there was still some residual radioactivity left in the process system, and you can see that these gentlemen are wearing breathing protection. They're wearing special protective clothing to avoid breathing in any radioactive particles or getting it on their personal clothing. This is a view of the central control room. We had an earlier picture looking down towards the operator's console. This is the other end, showing the graphic panel with all the instrumentation and equipment on it. This is one of the new pieces of equipment that was installed in L. Again, it's a piece of equipment which had been installed previously in the operating areas. It's called the M2 console and has a lot of other names, but I like to think of it as a 3 Mile Island preventer. Most of you have read about 3 Mile Island and the incident that occurred there. At the time that incident occurred, they had 150 alarm plates come on in a space of about 15 minutes. There were 2 operators in the control room, and the supervisor was out somewhere on the plant. Many years ago, at Savannah River, we recognized the possibility of such an event. From the beginning, we have never operated. Automatically analyzes critical alarms where the ability to cool the reactor could be lost, alerts the operator, and if he isn't moving rapidly enough, takes action to provide emergency cooling to the reactor without the operator doing anything. And there is no way for him to bypass this piece of equipment. When the reactor's running, the green light is on. If something goes very wrong, something were to go very wrong, the light would change from green to amber to red, and that's all there is. This piece of machinery takes control automatically. It's very sophisticated. This particular piece of equipment costs $1.5 million, just as it sits there in the control room. It was designed, no, it's not computerized. There was concern about computer logic, and this is all hardwired. It's all relays in there, and their relays are redundant. If it needs one relay to do a job, there are 3 in every location. It's at least 3 deep redundant throughout the system. This is one of those little jobs that looked easy on paper and turned out to be kind of interesting. These are the distillation columns where we wrote a very small amount of the heavy water from the reactor, run it through these columns and clean it up, restore it to isotopic purity. That wasn't too tough a job to refurbish them. The thing that was tough was that they were insulated with asbestos insulation. And we all know now things that we didn't know when the plant was built 35 years ago. We know that asbestos is a potential carcinogen, and so we decided early on that, and as we refurbished the reactor, we would remove all asbestos from the area. Well, that sounded good, but what got interesting was when you remove it from a facility like this, you wind up building these 80 or 90 foot cocoons around the columns to contain any airborne dust which will result from the asbestos removal. People then go into these cocoons wearing plastic suits and totally enclosed breathing systems, wet down the asbestos, and pull it off. It's a major job. The cost of renovating those columns doubled over what we had initially projected, simply because of what sounded like a simple decision. I think it was still a good decision, but it didn't turn out to be easy.
What did you use in lieu of asbestos?
We used a new foam, one of these plastic type foam materials, which is not carcinogenic and which you can work without having to have breathing protection and so on. Yes?
Where was your asbestos buried?
We have a hazardous materials dump on the plant site specifically for disposal of asbestos and other hazardous materials. Yes. Carl?
Have you considered their asbestos problem when they clean up heavy water plant? It'll be 100 times as big as this.
Yes, it will. And right now it's on standby. If we ever go in there to do any refurbishing on it, we'll have an interesting challenge. My personal bet is, just guessing, that we will not restart the heavy water plant. That if the need for heavy water again comes up, we'll probably build a new plant. It'll be cheaper.
Then what would you do with the existing one? Just leave it standing?
Probably. I'm going to make one plug for safety on this job. In the 3 years in L area, we worked 2.5 million worker hours without a lost time injury. And if that had been an average construction job, we would have killed or injured 50 people in that same time period. So we feel pretty good about that one. I know the environmentalists get on us occasionally, and I'm not going to get into the environmental aspects because that's basically a political issue. But one of the things we found in L when we came out there was bluebirds. The area had been abandoned for a long time, and there were just bluebirds everywhere. And I like bluebirds as well as the next guy, and I hated to think that we were going to run them off. So we built a series of bluebird houses, which we stationed on every other perimeter light post around the area. And this is the one that happened to be right outside my window. They refer to this as Superintendent Bluebird. and you can see he's there and enjoying the house. And Jan will love this one. This is the logo of the team that prepared L reactor for restart. It's the phoenix, the Egyptian symbol of the resurrection. And of course our phoenix has an atomic symbol on his chest because we were resurrecting an atomic reactor. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be very happy to answer questions. What's that? Yeah, what we're doing here is a couple of things. The first goal of what we've been doing out at the plant on behalf of the museum in terms of the atomic energy display is to get custody of those old photographs, the clippings, the newspaper clippings, the land acquisition records, the census data, the cemetery information, all of the historical background for the coming of the plant. Now that, neither DuPont nor DOE, Department of Energy, has a resident historian out there. And as a result, that material has been scattered in file cabinets all over the plant site. Various people who were interested would squirrel away things, and some of it has unfortunately diffused off the plant and out of the public domain over time. We're very anxious to get that material and collect it in one place. It's grist for the mill of some very worthwhile historical studies and sociological studies. Nothing like it has ever been done before. We hope it never has to be done again. It needs to be documented. And we have we have DOE approval now that they will transmit this material to the museum for the archives. The only question is, what is it? And we're going through now and trying to collect it and document what is there and get it pulled together in one place. Don Law is working with this, and we have some help on the plant from the public affairs people. So that's item one. We're collecting the basic material. Item two, we have talked to the American Nuclear Society and the local chapter, and they're going to help us design the display. We haven't started it yet because we still don't know exactly what we have to work with in the way of material. So until we get the material defined, we really won't have a design for the display. We have some ideas, but we don't have a design. Item three, the DuPont company in Wilmington, not the Savannah River plant, but corporate DuPont, has given us a check for $3,500 to support the cost of the display, of building and putting up the displays themselves. So we're on our way. It's a little slower than I had thought. It's taken a long time to collect the stuff on the plant and get it, centralized and go through it and find out what's there and duplicate what DOE wants to keep before they turn it over to us and so on. But we're I think well on our way toward having both an outstanding archival collection of material and second, a worthwhile display here in the museum.
Will that room accommodate?
It will accommodate a sample. The archives will be upstairs. They'll be for research purposes. But I think that room can be a very attractive glimpse. We've toyed with a lot of things, like using the window to have a view of one of the towns, for example, do an Ellington panorama through the window. I think it's the people who left made enormous sacrifices, and I think it's appropriate that we have someplace in the county something that recognizes those sacrifices. And I'm hoping that we can use this material in that room to do just that.